when Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones made an offer to John Lennon, but he declined it. In one of the most iconic rock and roll concert films ever made, the Rolling Stones compiled a list of the names of the most influential musicians in the history of rock music in England, because Mick Jagger joined The Who, Eric Clapton, and John Lennon. The legendary member of the Beatles, he became the vocalist for the Rolling Stones. The Rock and Roll Circus show is a bizarre and one-of-a-kind performance that has the atmosphere of a carnival and has outrageous costumes. When Lennon saw a boxing kangaroo, he initially agreed to appear on the show, but he later declined the chance to do so. He dispatched Yoko Ono to make a request for the kangaroo to be removed. Following the fulfillment of his request, John Lennon rethought his decision, and the kangaroos were removed from the show. Rock and Roll was the first time John Lennon was able to stretch his wings without the other members of the Beatles band. It was also a glimpse into what he would become during his solo career in the 1970s, which began after the Beatles had disbanded. Marianne Faithfull, who was Jagger's girlfriend at the time, worked as a cast member in the movie as well. Unfortuitously, John Lennon is no longer with us. Nevertheless, the Rolling Stones are now on tour, and Keith Richards disclosed a Stones classic that he believed to be bad in an interview that was conducted to promote a show. In a new retrospective, Michael Lindsay Hogg stated that approximately 3 days before we were due to begin, we had a day of rehearsals and 1 day of filming. Steve Winwood hadn't been heard from for a long time, so we called him, and he said that he couldn't get it together. Fair enough. But this resulted in a significant gap in the act because it was a major theatre, a venue for supergroups, and there was no supergroup at that point in time. We felt that McCartney might be interested in doing it because the Stones and the Beatles were fairly close friends. However, we believe that he probably wouldn't want to perform without the rest of the Beatles, and of course, if the Beatles were present at the event that made the Rolling Stones famous. As a result, we believe that John Lennon might have possessed the disposition to dive straight in. So Mick called John and said, "Yeah, I'm playing with Eric Clapton just for fun. He can play. Who can play bass?" John then asked who could play bass. Mick Jagger suggested that Keith Richards could be able to play the bass, as a result of the fact that we all had a strong affection for Mitch Mitchell from the Hendrix experience. Within that single phone call, we had John Lennon, Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, and Mitch Mitchell stepping in for that supergroup. In other words, it's not that horrible. During that period of time, things were just like that. It is in part because of the friendship and mutual affection that the primary players have for one another that this program is able to be produced the day before. Everyone did a little bit of practice, but it was more of a day to hang around than anything else. The circus had boxing kangaroos, and at one time, we considered that we might have boxing kangaroos. However, the day before, John Lennon was there with Yoko and Julian, and the kangaroos were leaping around while wearing boxing gloves. "If you have a boxing kangaroo on the show, John won't show up," Yoko stated as she entered the room. If you had to choose between a boxing kangaroo and John Lennon, you would have to make a decision on which one you would choose.